There we are. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me today, Jevon. Again, I've followed your story. I've researched you. What an incredible life you've had. A lot of ups and downs as well. How have you been? Obviously, you've got Noble Poets. You're working on a lot of stuff at the moment. How are you at the moment? How are you today, right now?
I'm really good. Every day is a new day, and every day for me, every day of sobriety is another win.
Mm,
So I started my 17th year a couple months ago, and just plowing through that. In my life really genuinely is a miracle.
yeah.
The amount of what I was consuming on a daily basis, as you looked into my story, there was no exaggeration when they did that video
No.
on my story. I was consuming 10 to 15 people a day would consume, and
Mm,
was just able to continue consuming. And so to live in a place every day where my head is clear, my heart's clear, my focus is I'm very, very, very focused and very driven,
mm,
right?
mm.
So I took that drive that I had, before I changed my life, and have applied it to, health and wellness, and just have an extreme sense of clarity, right,
Yeah.
on a daily basis. So long-winded answer, but that's how I'm doing.
No, that's great. It's great to hear it as well. One of the things that I got the vibe, when I was watching your video is you get very emotional. You're in touch with your emotions. When you speak in your past, and when you're putting together tracks for Noble Poets like Humpty Dumpty, for example, how difficult or easy is that for you, given the intensity of some of these experiences? Looking back on your childhood, do you find it an easy process to write that stuff down, produce videos for it, put it out into the world, or is it particularly difficult when you're putting these songs together?
That is a great question. You are the first person that has truly asked me this at a deep level. It is not difficult to write,
Mm,
because I'm not having to, when I'm writing it, I'm going to that place. But when I'm recording it, it's going into an even deeper level spot. But then when you do the videos, then you're reliving it.
mm,
So there's three phases. You have the writing phase, then you have the recording phase, and then you have the video phase.
mm,
In Humpty Dumpty, that is my actual my trauma therapist. That's not an actor. And he brought me into a therapy session in front of like 15 people. And that's why I'm crying in the video, because I wanted people to understand the depths of what therapy can actually do for somebody.
mm,
Um, so going to those places, it was really difficult and never fit in as well. That's my
mm.
son that is playing me in that video. And
Wow.
he never has lived. He's never been beaten. He's never been molested. He's never been emotionally or mentally or verbally abused.
Mm,
Um, I'm actually more of a protector than abuse victims. They either go from they either repeat the pattern, or
mm,
they go the other way
mm,
to a protector. Well, I didn't repeat. I moved to being a protector. So my son had no clue. Once he acted out that process, there was several times during these videos and during the recording sessions where I'd just be on the ground crying. I mean, that's really just the honest truth. The
mm.
only way to get that emotion across in the recording is if you were going back to that place. And that's not fun for an artist who has spent 10 years doing trauma therapy,
Mm.
going back to those things you already worked through,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
having to relive it in a video.
Yeah.
But I really felt that if we didn't do that, that humanity was not going to be able to receive it properly,
Mm,
and we wouldn't be being authentic.
mm,
And that is the main thing with Noble Poets and Lion Rock Records, is we are staying very true to the story. There's no exaggeration. There's no made up stuff. I'm not creating false worlds that don't exist, which the hip hop culture is very known for,
mm, mm.
right?
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I'm counterculture. So to answer your question, it is very, very difficult to
Mm,
go into those places when you've been so far away from it,
mm,
right? Like I haven't been beaten by my dad since I ran away from home when I was, 15 years old. Right. I've seen my dad twice in 15 years.
Yeah.
So, he's still a drug addict, alcoholic. So I don't have to really connect to those points that almost destroyed me.
Yeah.
So going back into those annals is what I call them.
Yes.
Man, it it undoes a human.
Yes.
But the vulnerability is coming across in the videos. They're real, right? And in this hip hop world, it's so convoluted and so distorted from what actual reality of what life, you're blinging a bunch of money and, flowing your chains and your watches. And, it's like this, that doesn't even exist for about 99% of society. It's not even applicable. So it's like, well, how do we help people? Music is a pathway to help, at least our music, I believe, is a pathway to help lead people into health and wellness.
Yes, I like that.
But
no, I love that. It seems like that's your mission statement. Certainly.
You hit it on the you hit it on the head. I can tell that you've done the research on us, because it's very apparent what we're trying to do. That's why the stats are at the end of our videos.
Yep.
The next video we're doing, I'll give your audience like a little sneak peek. Like the next song is called Zans, and that is about my 5-year-old daughter at the time being taken by Child Protective Services and my house getting raided. Yeah. So she wrote about 3/4 of the screenplay for this next video.
Wow. Okay.
It's
very personal.
I was just reading it before I got on, and I was like, oh, I need to not start crying right now, because I'm reading her perspective. It's one thing when trauma is happening to you. It's another thing when you're the one who created the trauma and you put it on somebody else. That has been the hardest thing for me to walk through. I mean, I ended up getting full custody of my child when she was 11. And I made a promise to her that I'd never sell another drug, that I'd never have random women coming in and out of the house. I mean, I looked at her when she was 5 and I said, I'm done. I'm out. That's it. I get to hold that, but at the same time, knowing that the first 5 years of her life, we're walking through my weed gardens that were the size of a gosh darn, my indoor gardens were the size of a whole house. Right. Yeah. She's like walking through that, like smelling, nuggets that are the size of footballs, and, cocaine all over the kitchen table, and pills all over the place. I mean, it was really very disgusting the way that I was living. And the fact that she had to walk through that, I got her permission to do this next video, because I didn't want to put her life on blast without asking, hey, are you okay with us doing this? And she just broke down crying, because she's walked through trauma because of me. And I've had to own that. And so, we are giving people a real life example of what happens when we make really bad decisions. But then we're also leading people into the place of, this is what can happen when you change. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. You don't have to stay medicated, and you can get everything you lost back, spades. Like I've had a double, triple, quadruple portion of abundance given back to me through my choice to not medicate anymore. Right. So that's the agenda. And, it's working, because the world needs right now in the United States, we're at the highest addiction rate that we've ever been in the history of our country. We're worse now than we were during the Depression. That is crazy when you think about it, man.
Of course. Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. It's a very difficult time for a lot of people, but again, people are using these things to medicate depression, anxiety, which could be brought on by the pandemic, but also past trauma. It's understandable that that some people are in this place, but it sounds like what you're trying to do is create hope. You're very hopeful for not only your futures as a band and a musical outlet, but also other people's as well.
Man, you're hitting every nail on the head, man. You're a great interviewer, by the way. One of the best that I've actually worked with.
Thank you, man.
It's to get full custody of my daughter, to be sober for 17 years. I don't have a criminal record,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah. The end that was like, wow, that was amazing. You know what I mean? Very lucky when you think about it. When I heard that, I was like, that could have gone a lot differently for you,
well, when your friend gets shot in the head next to you, then your house gets raided, and they pinch you for 105 pounds, hash manufacturing operation, tons of grow lights and plants. They take your kid, to have no criminal record, to get full custody of your daughter, to now own, a mortgage branch and a record label. And, it's just it's a crazy, I should be dead, man. That when the gun jammed at my head,
Yeah.
my friend had just been shot in the back of the head twice right next to me, right? And our 140 grand is gone. And I'm trying to get out of the car as he's trying to unjam the gun.
Yeah.
And man, you ask me how I'm doing, there's not a day that goes by that I'm not living in a place of going, man, I'm alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
I should be dead.
Absolutely. And that honesty and openness there, I respect you a lot for that, being able to go through those things and talk about them on camera. It's so difficult to do. So there's a lot of, certainly a lot of respect from me to you for being able to do that. And one of the things that I was going to talk about next, you actually answered a little bit in the previous answer. Again, it's your accountability. And one of the things that struck me from, well, certainly talking to you so far, but also the video, is the fact that you take accountability of your choices. And I work with a lot of people who they can't let go of their past mistakes, whether that's drug related, adultery, violence. And I've lost some friends who have really succumbed to that guilt and that shame that's there. One of the things that's striking me about you is that you're still here and you're able to take accountability. And you said in the previous answer, incite real change. And I wonder, what is your advice on anybody, who, whether they're religious, whether they're not, whether they're going through guilt and shame for something they've done, something maybe similar to your experiences, and they're still dealing with that, and they can't see the light at the end of that tunnel, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense, because I had to battle through, when you're taking ownership and personal accountability of your decisions, there's a level of shame and guilt that is attached to that. There's, even, no matter how many people listen to this, if you're in that dark place, we cannot change what we did. We can only change what we're doing now, and we make a different choice in hopes. My daughter didn't have to forgive me. I didn't ask for her forgiveness expecting that she was going to forgive me, right? And that was her free will choice to forgive me. But it took a lot of daily choices of like, look, I'm not going back no matter what. You are going to see a sober, thriving, loving father that has got your back. I went through 7 custody battles to get her. I had to fight. And so at the end of the day, when she was writing the screenplay, and this is a testimony for, anybody who's listening, she said, Dad, you're the only person I know that has taken this type of responsibility. You did what you said you're going to do. And I just broke. It was in that moment that I realized that I've changed. And that's how she views me. And when a child who's been that, there was over 30 deputies at my house, right? If I get your email, I'll send you the screenplay to the next video, and you'll see she wrote this through her eyes. And
that's beautiful.
To have her tell me, Dad, like, you've done what you said you're going to do. And if you can use our story to help change the world and help people by making a different choice, it's never too late as long as we're breathing. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I like that. And, that moves me on nice to my next question. This might come across as a little bit confrontational, so please bear with me. But obviously you mentioned the lifestyle and the money being very appealing. If you're speaking to someone now that's listening to this or watches your story, and they go, well, that's not going to happen to me. They come from a similar background. They think they need the money. They think they don't have a choice. They're in a situation, they're desperate, and they think, well, I'm not going to make those mistakes. I need the money. I need the drugs to cope with pain. What would be your message to anybody that sort of looks at your story and goes, well, no, I'm different. That's not going to happen to me. I can cope. I can do that. You know what I mean? Because you feel invincible when you have the money and everything else that you had, right?
Yes, man. You know, at 20 years old, I'm, you know, profiting 50 grand a month and selling in between 1 and 3 million a month. I didn't go through any withdrawals when I quit drugs and alcohol. I went through withdrawals of the game. You know, that's what we called it, the game. It was the lifestyle. It was the influence. It was the, you know, it wasn't just the money. It was also the power of having, I mean, just armies of people under me. And, you know, for the people that think that they can attempt to do what I was doing, I've never met one person. And this is an experience of a really long drug career with working with thousands of people. I've never seen one make it out. They're either dead, they're in prison, or they are so succumb with medication that they're not even really functioning humans anymore.
Okay.
There's not one that I know that has made it in the game. There's always an endpoint, and that endpoint is never good. And my advice is get out while you can.
Yeah.
That's my advice, because the only way I got out was my friend getting shot next to me. I had to have, it had to get that bad for, I was doing that much on a, I mean, the level of abundance that I had, it was too much for a 20-year-old. And you see the same thing with rock stars. I'm really good friends with Head from Korn. Look at his story. He had so much abundance and had, you know, undiagnosed pain that he was dealing with, right? My daughter and his daughter are a month apart. They're a month and like 3 weeks apart, right? He walked his daughter through the same kind of stuff. And that's why they came out with Loud, Crazy Love. There's never a good ending with this. The only time that I see a good ending is when somebody says, I'm done, I'm changing. And I truly believe the universal law of you reap what you sow comes manifest, and it comes full circle in one way or another in our life. Once I decided to change, that first 10 years was the hardest road I've ever had to walk. But then I kept watching miracles take place that, you know, like meeting Head, who gets a phone call and says, hey, I need you to meet somebody, you know, you guys have similar stories. That's like virtually impossible to think of, right? And now to have him backing our music, the doors that have opened up from me making different life choices, I mean, you can't put a price on it.
No.
And so getting out while you can, choosing to no longer medicate and actually taking personal accountability and an inventory of what's going on inside of your heart and inside of your mind, going, okay, this is why I am where I am. This is what I need to do to no longer be what I was.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I go back into these videos and these songs, I don't even know that guy anymore. I'm so far disconnected from that person. I mean, I'm still connected to it, and that's why the music is so vulnerable. But at the same time, like even my son, he's like, Dad, I don't know this guy that you're talking about in your music. He's like, I have no clue who that person is. I've never had a drink. I've never done, you know what I mean? Like my two youngest children, they have no clue what my oldest daughter actually truly walked through. They know that I was a drug dealer. They know that I almost went to prison, but they don't understand the depths. And that is a good thing for me to look back and go, I'm not that person anymore. Right. And, you know, the shame that's attached to when people try to change, we think that we're going to be able to like fix everything in a day.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. It's one day at a time. It's making amends with people. It's taking ownership. It's sincerely, apologies mean nothing if there's no action back to them. Right.
Yep.
My dad apologized my whole life and told me he was going to change and doesn't show up for birthdays, and he's, you know, urinating all over himself and can't get into the house because he's locked out, breaking through windows, scaring his kids. Like, I'm going to be different. I'm going to change. Well, he's still a homeless drug addict, alcoholic. He's never changed. So his apologies didn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
In my situation, I wanted my apology to be backed with action.
Yeah.
Which means I am making a different choice, and everybody in that is in relationship with me is going to know that my apologies meant something, because I'm not doing what I used to do.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And one of the striking things in that response is, talking to me about how you're involved with your kids and they're involved in your projects and things like that. And I wonder what it'd be like for you now to visualize, say, if you were sitting in front of a younger you, where your dad was supposed to be sitting and your parents were supposed to be sitting. What would you say to yourself? What kind of what kind of support or advice or phrase would you say to yourself if you could sit back now opposite, like I am with you, and you were talking to your younger self? What kind of things would you say, do you think?
I think if I went, well, I know that if I could go back and talk to the 4-year-old, I would try to comfort him, because I didn't feel safe. I mean, I was like hiding under like dressers, like squeezing my way under a dresser, because I was so terrified of being beaten. I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel comforted. I don't know, for me, if I would have given a 15-year-old advice to not leave, because I really genuinely felt like I had no other option.
Yeah.
It was a breaking point. And sleeping on the ground in bathrooms and being homeless with a backpack full of drugs, as you saw in Humpty Dumpty, I didn't know any other way to survive. But one thing that I would have done is I would have comforted, my young child self. And I would have done anything that I could to make him feel safe. Imagine being so unsafe that you actually are willing to go out of your window and sleep on the ground in the cold. I mean, in where I grew up, I mean, it can get 25, 26 degrees at night. I left with a backpack. I had a sweatshirt, a pair of pants, a pair of shorts, and a t-shirt, and like, a couple $100 in my backpack. That's how unsafe I actually felt. So, I think it worked out the way that it had to work out. I was not going to get out of the game any other way.
Yeah.
It is my fault that my friend got shot in the head twice. It's my fault. I'm the one who put him in that situation. That was not, now he chose to work with me, but I opened the door to put him in that situation. And, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about the pain and the damage that I've caused people. I think if I could have just laid out a blueprint on how to navigate through the trauma up until I was 18 years old, I was a phenom athlete when I was growing up. That got blown. I was batting over 400 when I was a freshman in high school, which is insane, right? And I was getting all straight A's in honors class. I would have probably told myself to keep fighting the good fight and separate myself from the abuse. But as that kid, I couldn't take the beating anymore. There was just something in me where I was like, I've got to go. That's it. And I never looked back, and I've been taking care of myself since I was 15 years old, and really good with people, so that and very loyal and honest. And I was like that in the drug game, and I think that's why those skills were so, in the drug game, people are very dishonest, and they're thieves, most of them. So when you got a guy that is super loyal, takes care of everybody, they gravitate to that. And that's that leadership that I've had since I was, very young. Like I said, the protector, right? I protected all the people around me. They felt very safe. They felt very loved. They felt very taken care of. I was just using it for the wrong reasons. Now I'm trying to actually protect humanity, right? I'm turning it into another thing. So giving myself advice, I don't think, outside of me just trying to comfort myself, I don't think there would have been anything that I could have told myself that would have stopped me from doing what I was doing. There wasn't anybody gonna, if you got in my way, that was one thing. If you weren't part of our crew and you got in my way, that was going to be a really bad day for you. That's one thing we made very apparent, very clear with that. And we exerted force through violence.
Yes.
right? If people were dishonest, or if people were doing heroin or methamphetamine, they were completely eliminated from the group, and they were not allowed to be around what we were doing, because we knew once you turn into a junkie, you're going to do something to infect or steal, or so. And it's funny coming from an addict saying that, but I called us a higher end functioning addicts, because we could afford our cocaine and our pills and, our ecstasy and everything that we were doing. We didn't really like dealing with junkies that were mainlining, heroin or meth. So that protection thing has been there in the drug game. And now, it's like that with everybody that I work with. Everybody knows how loyal I am. They know how honest I am. They know that when I say I'm going to do something, that I'm going to do it no matter what. When I commit, like, you get all of me. It's the same thing on these podcasts. You're going to get every bit of me. Like, I'm not going to hold back. You're going to get every drop of me, because I believe that the cause that we're doing and helping others is worth it. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can certainly hear that in your voice and see it in you as well. And I respect that. Absolutely. I think it's the amount that you share, is very admirable. And I think there is a cause there. Again, that creating that hope, I see that in everything that you've achieved, man, and everything you're doing, which I greatly admire. Just moving on, well, before I go on to a little bit more about the music side of things, again, we talked about the withdrawal from the money. Now, I know you've talked about how you're doing now and how great that is. And I'm, again, really proud of you, if I could say that, even with my limited understanding. I think that's wonderful. But could you take me back to, you mentioned, you'd gotten away with that criminal record. It was the first days, because I know you've got a job now, and you're very successful in that. You own your own businesses, your own label. But can you take me back to the very first days when you decided to make that change? What kind of things did you have to implement? How disciplined did you have to be with yourself to make these things happen? Because it's lovely to hear where you are now, and that is wonderful. And we'll talk a little bit about the future in a little while. But those first days where you're leaving this lifestyle behind, all of the trappings, all of the addictive things. Talk me through those days and the commitment you made to yourself, and how difficult that certainly sounds like it was quite difficult to do from when I was researching.
Oh, it was near, for me, my phone didn't stop ringing. I actually had to move out of Humboldt County to get away from, when you're brokering. So imagine, have you ever seen that Netflix show Murder Mountain?
Never seen it, but I'll check it out.
So it's about all the growers that are living in Humboldt County, right? And that's where all the high grade weed in the world, 80 to 90% of the high grade weed is being grown in these hills in Humboldt County because of the climate. I was cleaning those mountains out. I mean, they couldn't even keep up with me. People would be like, how can this kid, move 500,000 in an hour and a half? Like, how is this possible? And
that's insane.
It kept coming and coming and coming. I was cleaning these mountains out. So when their golden boy gets his house raided, their first thing is not like, oh, let's stay away from him. No, the phone kept ringing like, we've got weight, we got to move. Like, you in, you out. Like, we got 100 pounds, we got 200 pounds, we got, the phone calls didn't stop coming for probably 18 months.
Right.
So
okay.
The temptation of making $10,000 an hour, I remember one time I made like 17 grand in less than 10 minutes. It was just like,
wow. Yeah.
Crazy. And so when you leave that life, that temptation, when the phone is ringing and ringing, like, hey, I got weight and I know how much money I can make off each load, right? To say, hey, I'm out. Hey, I'm out. Hey, I'm out, again and again and again and again, knowing that you no longer have any income. I mean, the devil comes knocking. You know what I mean? And comes in that level of seduction, dressed in Ben Franklin's.
Yeah. Yep.
So that was very, very hard for me. I didn't care about getting rid of the drugs and the alcohol. I cared about no longer, my identity was wrapped up. I had a home that was, I don't know, 2-3 miles away from the beach on 5 acres of redwoods, 38-foot tall ceilings in my house, a spa in my bathroom. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I sold that property, right? I sold I owned a glass manufacturing warehouse where I had glass blowers that were under me. I sold that whole business. I had an urban clothing store. I sold that. I had a gem and mineral store that I had, like, diamonds and tourmalines, all kinds of rare stones from around the world. I sold that. I got rid of my whole gem collection. I literally dumped everything. Thank God that my property was worth as much as it was and my businesses were worth what they were worth, because that gave me, a nest egg to transition into, going into a new phase of life. But when we had the economic crash in 2008 here in America, by the time my money dried up, like right at about the same time, right?
Okay.
I went through all of it. I mean, I owed bail bondsmen, I owed attorneys, I owed a lot of money out. And the interesting thing about my process is I paid off every grower that I owed money to, and everybody who owed me money, I canceled their debt.
Okay.
And I had at least 100 grand out on the street.
Wow.
I said, you know what? I'm going to pay it forward. I don't want to go after that money, because that's what I was going to have to do. And I knew if I had to go after that money, that some legs were going to get broken. Something was going to, and it could have put me in a situation to be in prison.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So, letting all that go, going through my money. I mean, when my son was born, I was eating out of food lines. When my son was born, I had to go through hell. And every single time, every single day, I was like, man, it'd be so easy to go back to that life. But within probably a year of all that happening, that's when the doors opened up with, I own a very successful mortgage branch. I got a phone call from a guy that was like, hey, I got an opportunity for you. I know how much you love people. You're honest. I got an opportunity for you.
Lovely.
And so, there's been months and this isn't me bragging or tooting my horn. I'm not that guy, but there's been months where I made more in a month than I ever made selling drugs.
Yeah. Which
so
is awesome.
But I had to walk through the fire, man. I had to go through the hard crap and resist the temptation to go back to doing what I was doing. If I would have gone back to doing what I was doing, I would have lost the trust of my daughter. I would have lost the respect of my family. All the words, all the promises that I made, I would have been viewed upon the same way that I view my father.
Yep.
And I was like, nope.
It's not what you want. Yeah.
My daughter watched me walk through this stuff. I was eating out of food lines right about the same time I got full custody of her. She watched me suffer. She watched me struggle. And, she knows how much money I made last year with my mortgage branch. And she was just like, I don't understand this, Dad. Like, how did you, this just is absolutely crazy. And so we're not going to get to where we need to go without going through the hard stuff in the moment, to achieve. The world is not going to just hand you its wealth. You actually have to stand in and do your part and co-labor, and be very diligent about your choices and what you want to do. But I do believe, I paid my price and walked through hell, got on the other side, and now can live to talk about it, to help others. But for people who are in that game, and the temptation to just make that quick,
of course, that
quick money, man. It's hard to get out of. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Hopefully people can follow your example. But I do like also the fact that you're able to now have the label and the mortgage branch as well. And I think that there's something in that too. If somebody looks, somebody comes from, a similar background and they don't have a guy, a friend who calls them up, they want to quit, they want to get out, like you did. But they don't have a guy to call them up and say, oh, you're trustworthy, you're loyal, let's, bring you in. And there might be a lot of self-doubt, as you can imagine. There might be like, well, what skills do I have? So if you could look, if you could take some of those key skills that you had back in that former life and look at maybe how you've applied them now, can you maybe tell me some surprising key skills that would actually translate so that somebody, maybe who doesn't have a hope, maybe they're thinking, oh, well, what can I offer the world? I've only done this.
Yep.
What can you tell me about what key skills, surprising key skills rather, have translated?
I mean, these are some of the best questions that I've ever gotten. So I took my phone skills, I took my honesty. I was very honest in the drug game. So I took it and applied my phone skills and my honesty into the mortgage world. People I've done over, 1,000 loans. And there's been one common theme. I've probably heard this 200, 300, 400 times. You are the most honest person that we have ever dealt with. And I don't ever I'm licensed in 7 states. So I don't meet 95% of my clients. How am I able to establish that level of trust over the phone? Because there's a level of sincerity and integrity that I have. So I took that sincerity, I took that honesty, I took that integrity. I tell people I'm in the same game that I was in before.
Okay. Yeah.
The mortgage game and the drug game are exactly the same thing. I'm just selling something else. Okay. I'm helping people get a home. I'm helping people do refinances so they can get out of financial hardship if they need it. I'm actually all I did was take all of anybody who's been in the drug game, they can find a successful career in sales.
Okay.
That is the honest truth. I don't care if you're selling cell phones. I don't care if you're selling life insurance. I was a financial planner, for crying out loud, before I became a mortgage broker. How does somebody who's counting millions of illegal dollars, how does he step into the banking world and is in relationship with guys who own banks that are doing 40, 50 billion a year? And they all know my story, which is even crazier. Right? Man. Yeah. I'm honest with them too. And they've seen all my videos. I mean, these guys who own these banks, they're just like, you are like nobody we've ever met before. Like your whole life is just a miracle and a testimony to God's goodness and his faithfulness to somebody who wants to stay steadfast. But, people who are trying to change their life, I have somebody right now that I know that got out of prison and he was in prison for guns and drugs for 20 years, right? And so he has a criminal record. And I told him my story because he was actually down here during when Humpty Dumpty was being filmed. And he asked me, he's like, well, how'd you get into mortgages? Like, and I was like, well, I don't have a criminal record. And he's like, well, I can't say that. So he actually got into selling commodities. So, which you don't have to have, you can't have a criminal record and be a mortgage branch owner, right? So he sells commodities. He's the one who is actually brokering the loads of food that are going on to the trucks that are being delivered.
Okay.
What did he do? He took his skills, went to prison for 20 years, and is now out and making a killing as a commodities broker. Amazing. That's just another story.
Amazing, mate. That's beautiful. That's amazing.
Here's the thing. We have to believe in ourselves. If somebody who's had all these problems, if they don't believe that they can take these problems and turn them into something that is going to bring a change, that is the biggest deal. Belief system. We live under the law of attraction, which is the same thing as you reap what you sow. When you are operating in a frequency of knowing that you are not going to live the way that you lived, doors are going to open for you. Yeah, it's just a matter of time. That I've never seen anybody that has changed their life and has been like, man, I sure wish I didn't change.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wish that I was still selling drugs and medicated.
Yeah.
I don't know a single person that has made a change and wish that they could go back being who they were, because every single one of them has made it through and has a story to tell and is doing better than they were when they were in the drug game. And that's applicable to every type of addiction.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah.
I don't care what the addiction is. We can get out, we can make a change, and we can do something that is actually going to help humanity. And that's, I believe in paying it forward, right? Yeah. That's what this whole music is about. And for a lot of people, they're not telling their story through music, and that's okay. I know somebody who has a very similar story as mine. He made $4 million last year in the mortgage game. He's actually the one who made that phone call and got me into the mortgage business. And he has a testimony that's like mine: the abuse, drug addiction, all of it. He goes and speaks to kids at the juvenile hall. He's paying it forward, right? Yeah. And not only that, we help support orphanages for kids who don't have a place to go. Him and I do that together. So I'm not just taking this abundance that I've been giving and hoarding it all to myself. Yeah. I actually give back to humanity, and am really big on helping support organizations that are helping kids like me. Right. So I speak itinerantly as well. I speak to at-risk youth. I get brought all over the place to speak publicly. So how can we pay it forward once we make that change, and then we start to see the doors open up? It's not just about our lives changing, it's about changing other people's lives too.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Right? And that's the great thing about you as well. From I can see, across a computer screen, across the other side of the world, I can see you really believe in it. There's no, you know what I mean? You really love it. You really believe in it, and you really do, and that's a beautiful thing. There's no, it is just real and pure. And I think there's something great in that. And obviously, I know it can't always be easy. And that is what I'd like to sort of 2 or 3 more questions now. But what I'd like to ask is, there will still be times when, even though you have this self-belief now, and you have this, the support of your family, around you and friends, there will still be times when you have bad days. Now, obviously, you will know people, and I will know people who they're dealing with addiction, they're dealing with mental health, and they just don't see the point of getting out of bed. And you mentioned there's a varying forms of addiction there. When you are having a bad day now, in this time in your life, they may be fewer than they were, but can you tell me about what gets you out of bed? What is it? Is it your daughter and conversations you have with her? Is it your son? Obviously that'll be part of it, but what kind of things get you out of bed when you are having that bad day now?
Yeah, I am very goal oriented, right? And so I always will lead people back to where your passion is where your purpose is. We get depressed and we get anxiety when we lose our focal point of where our passion is. When we are, being in the mortgage field is not super glamorous, right? Yeah. What's my passion though? My passion is my music. My passion is helping others, helping kids. My passion is trying to do what I can do to change humanity. My purpose lives within inside of my passion. I have bad days all the time. I had 3 of them this week. Okay. I'm pressing through and going, okay, what can I do right now in this moment that is going to make it to where I don't stay in this place? Oh, wait a minute. I have a really dope recording studio. Let's go turn that on. Let's go start producing some music. Let's write some lyrics. Let's go work out in the garage in my CrossFit gym. And, for people who don't have a recording studio, if they are doing music, and this is just one way, you can get on YouTube and you can find beats. Yeah. There's always a way, especially in the hour that we're in. This is the greatest time to be alive. There's always a way to get reignited into our passion, because that is going to define our purpose. What makes us come alive. Whenever I lose focal point of that, I notice that's when the anxiety settles in. That's when depression comes in. And then I lose my focus. Oh, wait a minute. Why am I getting so caught up in this moment when I've just spent the last 17 years getting to where I am? No, dirty, snap yourself out of it. You know what I mean? Like, and it's something that people who medicated for as long as I did, we actually sometimes will have to fight our way out of that mental gutter.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I know a large percentage of humanity, we are medicated and we think that medication is going to get us out of that gutter. And then what I mean by medication is, ecstasy, LSD, pills, cocaine, meth. That self-medication never gets us out of that problem. It perpetuates the state that we were in, because eventually the grass isn't greener on the other side. The grass is green where you water it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you are where you end up. You know what I mean? People are like, oh, I'm going to move. I'm going to, do this or that. It's like, no, you're going to be in the same spot you are right now. You just don't realize that until you get there. Yeah. Like, our grass is green where we water it. And so when I'm in a rough place, which, the mortgage game is very stressful. So there's times where I'm just like, oh my God, like, this is so difficult. But sitting in that and not choosing to compromise, every single time that I do that, I get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. But when you're at the beginning of the journey, it's very difficult to realize that you're getting stronger as you're making that choice to stay unmedicated, right? But the more times you do it, you get farther and farther away from that old man, right?
Yeah. I like it, man. I like it. And I do want to get a question in, because one of the most beautiful things about Noble Poets, obviously I looked at your testimony, but I also looked at yours and Caleb's testimony as well. There's your musical partner. And I think that there's something beautiful in his experience too, because it's completely different to yours. And I love that. And I wanted to ask you, what are some of the more enjoyable moments of working with someone who has that, he comes from a completely different background, but you said he taps into your head. He can pull that out from you. And can you tell me about some of the best experiences you've had making music, creating with Caleb, again, coming from that completely different background?
Yeah, Caleb's sober. Caleb's a virgin. Caleb is, the thing that I admire the most about Caleb is, he could be doing what I was doing. He's good looking. He's so talented. He's an amazing producer, but he is like proactively on a daily, he's having to make the same choice that I made when I changed. He just hasn't compromised, right? He still has to make a choice every day. Like, I'm not going to go and waste my time with people that are distracting us from our vision. And that can be very hard as a 20-year-old.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Girls flocking, everybody's partying. It's a little easier when you're in your 40s because, most of the people are raising kids. That's not his situation. So, our relationship is really cool because, sometimes when I'm down, I'm like, man, look at what I've been able to give Caleb. Yeah. He has literally followed my advice, and now it's paying out in spades. Right. So that camaraderie and that vulnerability that we have together, I've never met anybody that could hear my lyrics. We make the beat, he hears the lyrics, and he writes the hook. Even yesterday I was on a podcast, so I was like, I don't know how he does that. Like, how is he able to get inside of my brain and sing exactly what my heart and my mind is feeling? That's how connected him and I are. We're, he's like my best friend, but like my son at the same time, because I'm 2 decades older than him. Right. So it's just, our relationship is such a interesting dynamic, and we just work so well together. I mean, even when there was hardship, when we were recording the record, I had to revamp my whole studio. Everything in the middle of recording our record, like, completely shut down. I mean, it was just so weird what was happening. It was almost like supernatural experience where, you know, there was like this force trying to stop us from getting done what we were getting done. And, you know, Caleb and I came together and we're like, man, we're going to figure this out at all costs, no matter what. And, you know, I believe that the song, a lot of the songs on The Beautiful Flaw, which is the album that's coming out this year, a lot of those songs came out of the adversity that him and I were pressing through together. It's one thing to, you know, press through my own adversity, but we were actually facing adversity together as a unit, right? And I mean, we waited, like, because of COVID, you know, Apple was, my brand new $5,000 computer that runs my whole studio shut down and was brand new, completely shut down. We had to wait 3 months for a new one to come.
Right. Yeah.
So this goes back to that thing that we were talking about a couple minutes ago. What choices were Caleb and I going to make that were not going to allow us to get into a depressive gutter? Because we could have been like, man, we're screwed. We got a deadline. You know, we're right in the middle of the momentum on this record. And now look, our whole studio's shut down. That's what the mind wants to do. But we were like, hey, what can we do to come together and not allow this to beat us, right? So we hooked up one of my old computers and just made do until the new computer came. I mean, there's a lot of things that we had to actually press through. I mean, we went through 7 engineers just getting to the drummer from Red, Joe. He's the one who did the mixing on our project, and he just did Head's project, the Love and Death project that released at the end of last year. We went through 7 engineers to get to him. Most people would have quit by their 2nd or 3rd engineer. I mean, we were just banging our heads against the wall because nobody could get the sound that my ear needed to hear. By the 7th engineer, you know, we got it. So that passion and that vulnerability that you hear in the music, that came out of Caleb and I getting crushed through the process, right? The refinement that takes place from failure. I don't believe in failure. I just believe, okay, we just learned another way not to do it.
I love it. I love it, man. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's great. It's a testament to the growth and development that anybody can go through as well. And thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to squeeze one more in. I know we're short on time, but I could talk to you for hours, mate. What would be your message then to the people that are just discovering Noble Poets? Maybe they're in the UK, people that have supported you for the beginning of your musical career and in general. What is your message to those people that have got behind you, whether it's been Noble Poets or otherwise, whether it's new people discovering your music? What is the message to those people that have supported you?
Man, we love you. That is the message. We are doing all this because we love you. That is the main thing that I want people to know is we love you and we love what we're doing, and we're hoping what we're doing helps you, right? And that's why I'm super responsive when people go to Noble Poets Music on Instagram, or they go to, you know, Noble Poets on Facebook or noblepoets.com, which is our website. I'm very interactive with people who are commenting and giving us feedback, right? I mean, we've had 65-year-old women listening to our music being like, man, this just changed my life. I mean, I'm responding because I care. And, you know, I don't really view this as fans. I actually view this as a big family that is coming together to create a movement of health and wellness and sobriety, right? And we're coming together in unity to make a change. And so, you know, for everybody who hasn't heard it yet or is thinking about listening to it, I pray that it brings hope to your life. I pray that it gives you a perspective that if you don't quit, you will get to where you need to go. Yeah, that's the message. So
absolutely. And just quickly, obviously I could push you in a direction and I could say, oh, have you got any more projects coming up with Head, or have you got things coming up? But what can you tell me? There might be some stuff you've got to keep back, and I understand that. What have you got coming up that people can check out? What have you got that you could tell me about?
So we're going to release 3 projects this year.
Okay.
I've been sitting on a track that Head and I did together for a couple years. That's going to be, and it is, I'm going to tell you right now, and I say this wholeheartedly with full confidence, the world has never heard a sound like what happened when Head and I got in the studio.
Nice.
I've been sitting on this track that's coming out on The Beautiful Flaw. So there's going to be 2 EPs. We're going to combine those 2 EPs together and then add 4 more tracks to make the full album, The Beautiful Flaw. So Noble Poets will actually release 3 projects this year, along with all the other singles that are being released. So we had a full record, and Trevor Tyson, my curator, was like, why don't we break this down and give them 2 EPs, do 4 more tracks, and then on the final record, add the track with Head. That's what we're doing with that. So, you know, the audience can get prepared for, you know, dope beats, super clear message, really, really good videos. I write all the screenplays for the videos. So, you know, just really clear, pungent, you know, strong message. And also, you know, the music has a very appealing, you know, sonically, it sounds right.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So they can expect all that. Like, I don't cut any corners. We don't release something unless it is 100% hitting the mark. So everybody that's, you know, waiting for the Beautiful Flaw record, get ready, because we got two EPs that are going to bang, and then that final record, and then we're going to release the track with Head on there, and that one's going to be a showstopper because I've never heard a song like it before. So
I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully we can see Noble Poets in the UK at some point as well.
Bring it. Let's go.
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Jevon, thank you so much for your time, mate. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to catching you down the road. It's certainly been one of the most enjoyable chats I've had in a long time. So thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure being on today.
Of course, man. Of course. See you soon, man.
Yeah, we'll talk soon.